Well, I arrived in Merritt in 1919. I was a war bride. My husband lived in Merritt before he joined up, and then he was overseas, and we landed in Merritt in 1919. And when he was over there, he had the distinction of being the flyweight champion of the Canadian Army.
Boxing.
So when he came back, all his old partners were quite pleased to meet him and congratulated him on being the champion. So we went to the hotel, and then we got a little house. And when we went to this little house, it was 2 rooms. And the first night I was looking for the light, and there were no light in the house. And my husband said, Jimmy said, just a minute. So he went next door to the hotel, and he brought a coal oil lamp. And I had never seen a coal oil lamp before, and that was our light. Then the water was outside in the garden. I had to go outside and carry my water in. And I had never seen an Indian except on the pictures in the old country, and I was scared, so I always kept my door locked. Then we lived in that little house about 2 months, and then we bought a house. So then I was all right. I felt different then. Then Jimmy he was only 3 days or 4 days in Merritt when he got a job in the mine.
Which mine? In Blakeburn?
No, in Merritt this was. And he got a job. Then I kept my doors always locked because I was scared. Then when he come home one night, did you hear, he says, what happened in the mine today? I said, no, I have never been out. He said there were a man shot in the mine. Oh, I says, I'm not going to live in this country. I'm going back to Scotland. I wouldn't live here. Oh no, I'm going back home. So I got over that. Then the first time I went downtown, I met this lady, and she said to me, you're from the old country. Where do you come from? I says, Dunfermline. Oh, what school did you go to? I said, McLean School. Oh, who was your teacher, your first teacher, your infant teacher? That's what they called the first grade there. I said, Miss Clark. Oh, she said, did you like her? I said, oh yes, she was a good teacher. She says, well, I'm Miss Clark. So she was Mrs. Ewart then. So Mrs. Ewart and I were then the best of friends. She used to come to me, she was like a mother to me. She was awful good to me. And it was her husband that was shot in the mine. Mrs. Ewart. So it seemed that there had been a gambling game, and some man had won a lot of money. And this man that went into the mine was after the money. And they never found out who done that till just about 3 or 4 years ago. And that was a long time. Mr. Hale, he was dying, of cancer, and he admitted that he had done it. So I said that was that, so there you are.
No, it's okay.
In the meantime, my husband decided to study to get his fire boss papers in the mine. So he did. He studied for about 2 months, and then he wrote his exam and he passed. So then there were a job in Blakeburn for a fire boss. So he went up to Blakeburn. So I stayed in Merritt for about 2 months. I lived across the street from Mrs. Burr, Elmer Burr's mother, across the street, and I moved to Blakeburn. I moved to Coalmount, rather, first. I lived in Coalmount about 2 months, and oh my, it was tough there. Jimmy had to go up to the mine to Blakeburn on horseback, and sometimes it was 40 below zero. They had to lift him off the horse when he got up there. Some mornings it was so cold, but he was tough. These days you had to be tough. Then I must tell you this, you'll laugh. My window broke in my bedroom, and we couldn't have the window out in that cold weather, and you couldn't buy a window in Coalmount. So he said he would get one in the storeroom up at Blakeburn. And he carried that window, believe me or not, down on horseback to the house. And he brought it in, and I was helping him to put it in, and he put it on the bed, and I sat on it and broke it. I won't say what he said. Then he was up there, he got a company house. And he come down one morning, he was night shift then, went at night and come home in the morning. He come home one morning and he said, "We're moving this afternoon." Oh, I was just boiling diapers on the stove. Janet was 6 weeks old. Oh my, I said. So my neighbour, a lady called Mrs. Pye, she come in and took the diapers and fixed them up, and we moved. We had a truck couldn't get up because it was too deep snow, so we got a sleigh, a big sleigh, what they used to use sometimes for the company. And my kitchen cupboard was all broke. There were bits lying all over the place, but I got up there anyway, in Blakeburn, to this company house. So we lived there then all the time. We lived in Blakeburn, in this little house, right next to the mine. I could see everybody going to the mine and coming out from the mine, and that was it. And when the explosion happened, I seen everybody coming out of the mine, which wasn't very nice to see.
What was it like the day that the explosion took place? Did you hear it?
No, I was in Tulameen. I was in Tulameen when it happened. The people up there used to go with a tent and go to Tulameen for their holidays. That was their great holidays. I was down there in Tulameen when Jimmy come down, because the picnic had been the Saturday before, and he brought my brother down, and when he come down, he ate all the meat and everything I had, so he said, "I'll come down on Monday and bring you some meat." I said, "That would be fine." When he come down on the Monday, I said to him, "Look at Mrs. Haddo and Mrs. Shearer and all these people with their husbands there, and you have to go back." He said, "Well, I'd have to get Bill Ross to do a double shift for me." So I said, "Well, what about it? You stay." So Billy Cole, he was just a young lad, 19, he gave Jimmy a ride down, because 2 weeks before that we had our car burnt, a new car. It was in the garage and it was burnt. So that was bad luck for us. Then he come down to Tulameen, and that day I said, "Don't go back, stay." So he told Cole to tell Bill Ross to work a double shift for him. And if he'd went back that day, he would have been killed in the mine. So I always said I saved his life.
Just tell it the way you told us, because it's really interesting.
So here, when we were down there, they all disappeared, the men, and we didn't know where they had gone. Then there was a man come down and told us about an explosion in the mine, and that Jimmy was up there because he had been training the men to use the machines. I forget what you call a machine, you know. Miners will know what I'm talking about. So then, when I went back the next day, the man come down and helped me all home, and I went the next day. I never seen Jimmy for 2 days. I never seen him for 2 days. He wouldn't leave the mine. Then when he come home for a change of clothes and a bath, the doctor gave me 3 pills to slip in his tea or his coffee, and he slept for about 12 hours. And when he woke up, he bawled me out for not waking him up. Then he went back again and he stayed there until all the men were out.
When did you hear about your brother?
Then my brother, we had sent for my brother, and he was out there about 2 months. He was only 17, and he wasn't used to the life in Blakeburn. In the bunkhouse, the men used to gamble sometimes thousands of dollars in that bunkhouse. And he was raised a Boy Scout, and he used to take my children a walk and play with the kids. He wasn't used to that kind of life. But he was killed at 17. He was the youngest boy in the mine. Oh. Blakeburn was a funny place, believe me, coming from the city, from the old country. There was a school, thank goodness for that, and the children went to school. Isabel and Lenore and Isabel and Janet, they went to school there. Bill was just a baby then, and it was a good school. Then the girl Whitelaw, Peggy Whitelaw, and the girl Mrs. Snyder here, they were both had passed for to be teachers, and I thought this was a good thing. They didn't know who to give the job to, because they were both very nice girls, and quiet girls and nice girls. So they didn't know what to do with a small community, and they were well thought of, this family. So they put the 2 names in a hat, and they decided that the one they drew out of the hat would be the teacher, and the girls and their parents were favourable of that. So
Doesn't matter.
so one of them got the job.
Jerry,
One of them got the job. Then, this is funny. Jimmy's mother come out to see us from the old country, and she was about 80. So he went down to Spence's Bridge to meet her, and he brought her back. And when she arrived, and when she came in the house, she said, "Oh my, Isabel, I thought this was your shed." It was my house, but she thought it was my shed. So then she lived with it. So the first Sunday she was there, she got all dressed up, come out of the bedroom all dressed up. And I said, "Granny, where are you going?" "To the church, it's Sunday." I says, "There's not any church up here." "Doesn't the children go to Sunday school?" "No," I says, "there's no Sunday school here either." "Oh my, you live like heathens up here." "Oh, I wouldn't live here." Jimmy, bringing your wife and your family up here? Oh, I wouldn't live in a place like this. So I said that was that. So then finally, I thought about it myself. And a Mrs. Gillum, all you old-timers will remember Mrs. Gillum, well, she decided to have a Sunday school in her own house. And she had a Sunday school for all the little girls and boys. And they went down to her house. Then they got a church, and I think Mr. Reed, Reverend Reed, was the first minister up there. Reed.
Did you have music for hymns?
Paper?
Did you have music for hymns?
Oh yeah. Then they used to have a dance every Saturday night. Everybody went to the bunkhouse to the dance. There were only one young woman there, a girl called Gibson. She was about 18 or 19. So you can imagine how she felt among all us old married women, you know, but she was the only one that was there at the dance. Then we had an old lady there, Mrs. Cole, and she used to look after all that. She was in the
Midwife.
She was a midwife, and she used to go. We used to have her children at home, you know. She used to go there because it was too far to bring us down to Princeton when the cold weather was 30 and 40 below zero then. So she was the midwife for quite a few years. And every Saturday night the lights went out. We had no lights on Saturday night. And that was the night that my boy Bill was born, Saturday night. And when the doctor came up, he had to wear a miner's lamp, and Mrs. Cole had to hold another lamp, and that's when he came into the world with no lights.